And just so you guys know, my cheat sheet for the day is actually a post from American Values. There's a couple of them that are really good. If you guys aren't following American Values, I highly recommend getting in there. They do MAHA updates all the time. And they've got a good one from just this past week. And then a few days ago, they also posted one about the first 100 days. And it's really good. There's just a bunch has happened. But we will give it just a couple of more minutes, see who else decides to join us today. Let's see here. Maybe I can pull up a video to share the audio from. Let's see here. Messages. Here we go. All right. Let's see, which one do we want to share? Okay, yeah, while we wait a few minutes. So during the cabinet meeting that Trump had last week, Bobby talked about visiting Utah, which was the first state to ban fluoride in the water. And I got a little clip here of him talking about that I can share. Let's see. I wonder, playing this from my computer, I might get some feedback. If so, we will abandon ship on the clip playing, but let's give it a shot.
I also visited Utah, which is the first state to ban supplemental fluoride. Florida yesterday passed a bill to ban supplemental fluoride. I'm confident Governor DeSantis is going to sign that. We are working, Lisa and I are working together to change the federal fluoride regulations, to change the recommendations, and we're looking at the science now. I want to point out that in August, the National Toxicity Program, which was an arm of the NIH, did a meta review of all the science on fluoride and found that there's a direct inverse correlation between fluoride exposure and lowered IQ in children. So the more you get, the stupider you are. And we need smart kids in this country, and we need healthy kids. And thank you for your leadership. We're going to get there.
Yeah. So this is a cool one, right? Because Utah banned fluoride, and then more recently, Florida just last week banned fluoride in the water. So, you know, some of us have been on that tinfoil train for a long ass time. I mean, I've been aware of fluoride in the water being sketchy for like 20 years. And it was one of those ones where it's like, man, okay, I mean, we need to talk about it. We need to be aware of it. But what are the chances we're actually going to make some progress on that? And who knows, maybe we'll ban it nationwide with this administration. Guess we'll see. Anyway, let's see here. So it might just be us today. I know I made some big changes to how we're doing this because I had to get back on the grind. So I'm working like 60, 70 hours a week now. So I am committing to once a week, we'll do a Monday MAHA. And it'll probably mostly be focused on big updates on what's been happening in the MAHA movement over the last week. And if we have a guest and like a special topic, we'll run with that too. And we might do some pop-up spaces as we go as well. And, you know, if I hit the lottery, I'll go back to doing this full time because I really love this stuff and I love the MAHA movement, and grassroots work is really where my heart is. So let's see, where is the post that I found from American Values. And again, follow American Values. They are constantly posting great stuff. Okay, so here is my cheat sheet post. What a week for MAHA. Major victories and bold leadership are fueling unstoppable momentum. They sure do know how to write a headline. So here's our top stuff for the week. So it kicked off with Bobby joining Dr. Phil on Dr. Phil's show. And as some of you know, Dr. Phil was actually brought into the administration, I can't remember what his position is. But the big priorities for Bobby, and I think the FDA maybe, is banning pharmaceutical ads, which is huge. We've been talking about this for years. Let's see here. What else? Yeah, I mean, banning pharmaceutical ads, getting the bad ingredients out of food. And he's making progress on this already, of course. They banned 8 petroleum-based dyes, food dyes, in the last couple of weeks. And a few weeks ago, some of you might remember that he closed the GRAS loophole. GRAS stands for Generally Recognized as Safe. And this was a program that was originally meant to exempt things like baking soda and salt, things that are actually generally recognized as safe, exempting them from the rigorous process that food ingredients have to go through the FDA. But of course, corporations being corporations, they bent that program to their will and ended up doing their own research, if at all, on like 10,000 chemical ingredients that they just started added to food and claimed the GRAS loophole, and the FDA for some reason just sort of let them do it. And this is that thing that Bobby's been banging the drum about for a long time, that we've got all these ingredients in our food in America that are just straight up banned in Europe. And there's a reason folks like Americans can go to Europe and all of a sudden they can eat the wheat, they can eat the dairy, and they don't have any problems. And it's like, what the hell? Why am I able to eat this stuff in Europe, but I can't eat it here in the US? And it's because in the US, we have a whole bunch of ingredients that are just not good for us. And it's really frustrating to see it's taken us forever to make progress on this thing. But here we go. You know, Bobby closed the GRAS loophole. For starters, that means that companies can't use it to add new ingredients to the list. And now they're sort of going back over the number they quote is 10,000 ingredients that they're now going to be eliminating from the American food system. And I'm excited about this because, you know, a bunch of us are already on this. We're looking at it. We're not buying the fast food. We're not buying the food at the convenience stores and at the gas stations. We know better. So we're already doing better. And even us, there are foods that we choose to eat because we've got limited options and we're trying the best we can. And even those foods will have ingredients we would rather not have, right? How often do you pick up a product that looks like it's marketed well and it's got canola oil or, bleached enriched flour, which I keep hearing lately? The bleaching isn't good, but even the enrichment, air quotes enrichment, the iron, the folate, which is actually folic acid, and a number of other things they put in it, aren't even bioavailable and might be causing inflammation. So not only are they not nourishing you, they are actually causing problems that make it harder for you to uptake the other nutrients that you're trying to eat, which is really sad, really frustrating. But yeah, so GRAS loopholes closed. We've got 8 petroleum-based dyes that have been banned now. And I got a feeling he's just going to keep going. There were 2 other things on his list that he talks about being his 3 priorities. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets these done and just sort of moves down the stack to other priorities. But the other one, obviously, is making sure the vaccines are safe. And we've got some progress on this now with, for instance, the autism study has officially been launched, and a lot of people sort of presume that there's a connection between vaccines and autism. Our new friend, Matt Cormier from Health Uncensored, has been doing research and just recently published a study about the potential link between vaccines and autism. And I think this study is so interesting because it takes a novel angle to what it might be, right? Because a lot of folks are like, oh no, the vaccines cause autism, and don't go much deeper. And of course, most of us aren't researchers. So, I mean, most of us don't even have the wherewithal to read the studies and know what we're reading. So Matt does make a connection there, but the connection he makes is actually about the triggering of latent viruses that most of us carry, that happen when our immune system is suppressed. And if the triggering of those viruses causes an encephalitis, in other words, an inflammation in the brain, that can trigger autism. And he pulled together a bunch of case studies from adult-aged people from 14. I think the oldest one he mentioned with us was up to 31 years old that experienced an encephalitis in the brain and all of a sudden expressed symptoms of autism. And it was like, okay, well, that's really interesting. And then he pulled together studies showing that that vaccines can, in fact, trigger encephalitis in the brain. So he's putting one and one and one and one together and being like, okay, vaccines, but more specifically encephalitis. And something he quoted was that herpes simplex is actually the most common virus, not just most common virus that Americans have, because actually a very large portion of the global population has the herpes simplex virus, but it's the most common virus, and I might be paraphrasing or bastardizing what Matt said, so forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, but that a triggering of latent herpes simplex is the most common virus to cause an encephalitis in the brain, ergo the most common trigger for autism, whether it be from a vaccine or some other reason for the triggering of the encephalitis. And it's trippy because you don't hear anybody talking about it. Apparently, there was a little talk about this a while back. Matt also made another really interesting connection. We did a space about this last night, and there was some technical difficulties with this presentation, but the information is just so interesting. He made a connection between this and chronic disease generally, and the phenomenon around the world of falling global body temperatures, that humanity across the globe, our body temperature is dropping. And for about 150 years now, I think the original study was back in the late 1800s, showed that the optimal human body temperature for immune function and general health is 98.6 degrees. And if you're old enough, you probably remember at some point or another hearing like 98.6 degrees. You go to the doctor, 98.6 degrees, you're good. But apparently the average is now down by like a whole degree. And the thing is, this body temperature is a really important factor in regulating our immune system. If our temperature goes up, that's called a fever. And that generally happens in response to some sort of a sickness, right? You catch a cold, you catch a fever, your body heats up, it tries to kill off a viral infection, a bacterial infection, or whatnot. And that's a good thing. But if our body isn't rising to the appropriate temperatures, let alone maintaining that base level appropriate temperature, not only are you more susceptible to disease, you're going to have a harder time fighting it off. So we did a whole space last night, which you can find in the Club MAHA community. Did a whole space last night just about the phenomenon of falling global body temperatures, which I think is fascinating. And it does sound to me, at least, like a symptom rather than a cause. Right? Like I think he said he found some connections between falling body temperatures and microplastics exposure and heavy metal toxification. So these are things we already know about, but it's just folding in this extra data point, this extra symptom, and saying, look, we need to talk about this. We need to pay attention to this. We need to identify the causes of this, because every bit below 98.6 we go, the more susceptible we are, the sicker we are. And we know we're suffering. We know we have a deep chronic illness problem. So anyway, back to the vaccines bit. Bobby has also officially announced that all new vaccines, and maybe even existing ones, are now going to have to go through placebo-controlled studies. And this is a really big deal, obviously. Like, how are they giving us all of these medications without knowing with a proper placebo-controlled study that they're safe, let alone effective? So this is really exciting for me, especially when you consider that not only have they not been doing these sort of basic sort of gold star science assessments, but these companies are immune from prosecution if something goes wrong. So huge deal. I know a lot of people care about the vaccine issue. I care about the vaccine issue. So it's really exciting to see that we're finally making moves on that. And we are. So hell yeah, go Bobby, that kicks ass. The last thing that was on his list of the top 3 priorities for his administration is making sure that baby formula is safe and available. Now, obviously, you're going to have healthy mothers nursing, but A, a lot of mothers aren't healthy, and B, a lot of mothers aren't nursing. And a lot of mothers are choosing to use formula to help feed their children. Now, in America, unless you go way, 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 way out of your way, anything you find is going to be loaded with like corn syrup solids. It's going to be like the first ingredient. And also, many, if not most of them, have a high heavy metal load. So we've got unhealthy mothers having unhealthy children, cramming them full of vaccines, and then giving them baby formula that's exposing them to heavy metals and artificial ingredients, which again, I think the ending of the grass loophole will improve the ingredient quality on the baby formula. But the heavy metals, the microplastics, everything just gets stacked on, just loading us up with all these things. And we start right at the beginning of life. So moving on here, we had a really, really big victory in the free market, as it were. And I don't know how many people heard about this, but PepsiCo just announced that they're going natural for, I think, all of their products. It says America's largest food company makes major recipe change to appease RFK Jr. They've announced that they've already started phasing out artificial ingredients, and they would continue to transition products such as Cheetos, Lay's, Tostitos, and Doritos to be more natural in response to a change in consumer preferences. And this kind of gets back to what I was saying before. Some of us are already on, as best we can, we're not buying Doritos anyway. We're not buying Cheetos anyway. We might go to the organic store and buy the organic option, but a lot of us already know it's junk food, even if it's like slightly better. But we have to think about all these people at the bottom, all these people that are not in the know, that don't think much of it, and either they don't care or maybe they can't afford it. All these things to consider. And so they go to the store, they buy their snacks, they buy their food, you know what I mean? They buy the frozen dinners, they buy the stuff in the cans and the jars. And the least we can do is improve the ingredient quality on these things. It shouldn't be asking for much. So when we've got the grass loophole closing, so the ingredient quality has to improve. When you have more and more Americans paying attention and going out of their way to buy the better stuff, this is a pincer move on the market, right? They're going to meet those minimum standards mostly regardless. Corporations will do some pretty slimy stuff to sort of get by on doing things they shouldn't actually be doing. But for the most part, they're going to be aiming for those minimum standards. However, when the market itself moves and people stop buying that crap, you better believe these private corporations will move to where the market is. That's why for the last 20 years, the organic and natural food industry has been growing like 10% year over year. So we've already been moving the market. But even then, you go right back to what are the minimum standards? Because even for the organic stuff, someone might sort of wake up and say, all right, it's time for me to start buying organic food. Let me go do that. And so they go and they look for that little circle that says USDA or DA organic, and they buy it. But that standard's been watered down so much, it doesn't mean that much, right? It's almost certainly going to be better than the regular ass stuff. But it's not that good unless you know for sure that company goes out of their way and does it really, really right. So we're pulling a pincher move on the market here by raising awareness, making our own consumption choices, and by Bobby increasing the standards, which is really nice to see. So I'm going to keep moving through this American values list here. They mentioned again that Florida banned fluoride. Huge, just super huge. I'm really curious what other states might be working on this right now. Let's see here. So this one is freaky, and I didn't know this, and honestly, I don't know the details about it to even say that I'm confident what I'm hearing is correct. But part of Bobby's report to President Trump during the cabinet meeting had to do with HHS being a collaborator in child trafficking. and for sex and slavery. And he claims that they have now ended that, and that they're now aggressively trying to find 300 children that were lost by the Biden administration. Now, that's an extremely sensational statement. And if any of you guys know anything about that, and frankly, if any of you guys want to get up here and just, oh, hey, I see you there. I'm gonna bring you up now, my lovely babe. If any of you guys know anything about this, please come up here, because I don't know much, and I'm kind of just reading off the Americans Values thread right now.
What's the American Values thread? Oh, look. Sorry, that's my aunt.
Hey, what's up?
I said, sorry, that's my aunt.
Oh, hi, Aunt. Well, what I'm looking at right now is a thread on American Values Twitter page. They're a fantastic organization doing a lot of great grassroots work. And they're a wonderful account to follow if you just want regular MAHA updates in your feed. It's pretty much all they post about. And they post multiple times a day. So I'm going through a thread of theirs right now that just covers pretty much the last week. And then if we want to keep going for a little bit, they also have a thread from a few days ago that recaps the first 100 days of the administration. And I can sort of recap some of the things that we've already covered in some of the other spaces we've done. But this most recent post comment in the thread is about HHS addressing their role, intended or otherwise, in child trafficking, and that there are 300,000 children that they're trying to locate that were lost by the Biden administration. Now, I assume when they say lost, they mean sort of fell through the cracks in the system, and it could be anything from just an ineffective bureaucracy and sort of things fall through the cracks, or it could be something far more nefarious. And it really could be something far more nefarious. I tend to not default to the worst assumption, even though I could, because I don't want to start running around trying to convince people of things I don't know.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you can mute your mic, and then if you want to drop a comment or a question or anything like that, we can just you can just unmute. So I'm going to move on from that for now, because I don't know much about it. But again, if you guys know anything about it, drop a comment in the purple pill. If you're not a member of the Club MAHA community, go ahead and join the Club MAHA community, and that way you can drop comments in the purple pill. Or without joining, you can always come up on stage and have a chat. So let's see here. What else has American Values? So here we go, talking about the placebo test are going to be required for all new vaccines. All new vaccines will undergo safety testing in placebo-controlled trials prior to licensure. So I'm not sure if he's going to go back on the ones that already exist. That might be a future step. But hey, at least all the new ones are. And that must include all the mRNA vaccines, right? Now, this is HHS. I don't know if the vaccines for cattle, for instance, those might go through FDA. And so I'd be curious to find out if any animal agriculture-based vaccines are now under this same regime of requiring placebo-controlled studies. And obviously, a lot of us that are concerned about the vaccine issue are concerned that cattle vaccinated, that will impact people choosing to consume that cattle. So again, if anybody knows, please drop a comment, drop a question. Moving on, we have the soda and candy in SNAP topic. And this is pretty cool. I mean, it's a little controversial, right? Because some people feel it's punitive. You got folks, they're on food stamps. Sure, there are some deadbeats out there, but there's a lot of folks that are just hit on hard times. There's kids that, like, obviously we don't want them eating nothing but junk food, but to not be able to have any sort of enjoyable, pleasurable treats sucks. I mean, just from an experiential standpoint. But, you know, the flip side is we have an absolute health epidemic in this country of eating shit food. So, you know, I'm really sympathetic to the idea that soda and candy shouldn't be in the food stamp program. It is, after all, a supplemental nutrition assistance program. And these junk foods are not nutrition. But Louisiana has gone ahead and banned soda and candy from their food stamp program. Excuse me. And I believe some other states, like one or two of them, have done so as well. And I don't remember which at the moment, but this is really picking up steam. That we're removing soda and candy from the SNAP program. Now, this is another interesting one to me because there are some brands out there that actually have some very nice soda and candy alternatives. I actually used to work for one of these companies. It's called Olipop, and Olipop does a soda that is actually good, healthy ingredients. It's got like 4 grams of sugar total. The sugar comes from fruit juice. It's actually a high fiber soda because it's got this rad blend, this proprietary blend of prebiotic fibers. And then and then it's all just like fruit juice and real flavors. And it's a soda. They have like 15 different flavors. You got your cola, your cherry cola. They've got like a Mountain Dew flavor, a Dr. Pepper flavor, strawberries and cream, cherry vanilla. They have all these awesome flavors, grape, orange. And it's all like it's healthy. Like, and I'm doing air quotes here, but it's healthy. It's a carbonated soda style drink with fruit juice for the sugar and the sweet and the flavor, and then like 8 or 9 grams of fiber per can. So when you talk about removing soda from the food stamp program, I would really hope we have enough forethought to exempt products like that are technically soda but actually healthy, because the point here in removing these things is to get the junk food out, the things that are proactively unhealthy. But to offer a healthy alternative, I think, is an even better solution. And then the flip side, of course, is that they're more expensive. You know, you can get a can of Coke for like 70 cents or whatever, and a can of Olipop is more like $2 to $2.50. And so if you're on food stamps, you might choose to get that, but you might run out of food stamps a lot quicker. And that's just sort of something you'll have to. What's that?
That's like Life Water. It's so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, Life Water, that sounds like marketing.
They lowered their prices.
Life Water is just marketing. It's just bottled water. You're still drinking out of plastic, you know?
Yeah, I know.
And to be fair, I'm sitting here with a Brita filter on my counter, and right now that's the best I can do, and that's plastic as well. As soon as I can afford it, I'm probably going to buy a Berkey filter. And those are nice, but they're like $400. But it's like it's like $400, and then the filter will last you like a year or a year and a half, and then the filter's another like $60 for another year and a half of really pretty pristine water. If you're a homeowner and you can afford it, you can either get a reverse osmosis filter installed under your kitchen counter for a couple $100, or to really go for it, you can get a really gnarly filter installed at the intake where all the water comes into your home. And that one's probably like $1,000 or $2,000. I've never looked at them because I've never owned a home. But if you do that, all the water, as long as the pipes in your house are fairly clean, all the water coming in that you're drinking.
What about lead pipes?
Well, I think lead pipes are actually pretty rare in homes. Lead pipes were very common for infrastructure. And I'm talking out of my ass here. I could be wrong, but I think for most homes, especially if they were built in the last 30 to 50 years, you're mostly going to be seeing like, I don't know, aluminum, maybe PVC, which wouldn't be ideal, but I think a lot of them are.
Well, in my house, my old house, my grandparents' house, they had lead pipes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, how old's their home?
Oh, it was from the Victorian ages.
Yeah, there you go. See, exactly. Yeah, it's a whole ass thing, and we've obviously got to deal with that sort of thing. So if you have unhealthy piping in your home, a filter at the intake is only going to do so much, but it will do a lot. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Tucker just dropped a comment for us.
The water is always filtering.
Tucker just dropped a comment for us that said galvanized pipe may be a problem, but copper pipe is fine. Now, of course, copper is really expensive. So, and this is the thing, those of us who are taking all this really seriously and have the wherewithal that we can actually afford to do so, we might actually update the piping in our home. But a lot of folks can't afford, but a lot of folks can't really afford this stuff. So we have to also figure out what's the lowest hanging fruit that the average person can do. And a Brita filter is going to help, but a Brita filter is only going to help for your drinking water, right? Unless you're also cooking with it, and it'll help some. But Brita filters don't take out the fluoride. If you want to take out, if you want to take out the fluoride, you're going to have to go for like a Berkey filter. And even with the Berkey, there's like an add-on filter you need to get. And it lasts a long time, but it's an initial investment, right? It costs a fair amount of money up front. Yeah, Berkey. That's right. They're called Berkey filters, like Berkeley without the L. But they're great, man. All my crunchiest friends from back in the day had a Berkey. Yeah, all my hippie friends had one, and I appreciate it. It tasted good too. It really tasted like clean water. But when we're talking about filtered water, most people only think about for drinking, and they don't really think about for one thing like for cooking. But the big thing they don't really think about is for showering. So imagine you got all this chlorinated water coming into your home, and you're showering in it, and especially you ladies taking showers in your molten hot water. You know I'm right. You know I'm telling the truth. I've had a girlfriend before.
I love my molten hot water.
I know. You didn't even have to tell me. But but check this out. You're taking these showers in this really hot water, right? And the water is chlorinated. So that chlorine, it's there to kill bad bacteria and whatnot. But you've got good bacteria on your skin. And so you're sitting there in molten hot water, killing all the good bacteria on your skin, on your scalp, on your face, on all your sensitive bits. On all your sensitive bits. You hear me? And while you're doing that, your molten hot water, it's steaming. That water is steaming. And now imagine you're taking the shower for like a half an hour. You're now breathing steamed aerosolized chlorine. And chlorine. Yeah, you're breathing the chlorine. So you're taking it in through your skin and your lungs. And look, I'm not trying to freak you out. I'm just trying to like add layers of awareness to all the points where we can sort of dial it in. Because for your shower, for like 30 or 40 bucks, you can buy a decent filter, a water filter for your shower head, and it'll filter out that chlorine.
Yeah, but what about the faucet?
You mean for the sink? For like the
No, like where it comes out, like for the bathtub.
For the bathtub. Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I know for the shower.
Those specialized ones. Like,
Wait, you mean like if you're taking a bath versus a shower?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good question. Haven't really thought about that. Well, you could take an obnoxiously long time and just fill your bathtub with the shower, but I don't think you're going to do that. I wouldn't. But that's a really great question. I'm honestly not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if there are filters for that, but I haven't looked. I'm mostly a shower guy. Though I do sometimes take like an Epsom salt bath just to get extra magnesium and stuff. But yeah. And hopefully Bobby, gets the fluoride out, and then he moves on from the fluoride, and we get even further down the road on our municipal water systems being even cleaner. What you talking about?
Nothing.
You tripping? I'm muting your ass. You just got muted. Yeah. I'll bring you back in a second. And hopefully so let's see here. I got one other thread from American Values I want to go through. And this one's the first 100 days of the administration. And we've talked about a bunch of this already here when we were doing the midday, the 3 times weekly. Where are we at? Here we go. First 100 days. This one's actually from Lauren Lee, who I'm not sure if she's still formally working with American Values or not, but she's been doing a lot of their social media work. So first, as we mentioned, Bobby banned 8 different artificial petroleum-based food dyes. And I'll just read through this list really quick. Oh, you're welcome. So he banned FD&C green number 3, red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue number 1, and blue number 2. Now, I know red 40 has been associated with hyperactive behavior, sort of like ADHD symptoms. I don't know if also in adults, but for sure in children. And of course, it's in all the candies and all that stuff. So that's a big one because, God, they use this in all the stuff. And it's not even just in candy. I have supplements that have red 40, and I don't understand why. I don't need my supplements to have color. But the one that I remember from when I was a teenager is yellow 5, because it is or was in Mountain Dew. And we used to always talk about how it would mess with your balls. Now, I don't even remember how it would mess with your balls, but that's what we would always say. And I'm pretty sure there's something to that. But these are all, as far as I understand, petroleum-based synthetic dyes. And I don't even know for sure that that all of these have been shown in studies to cause problems. But for me, I'm like, dude, fruits and vegetables, you can use beets for red coloring. You can use carrots and turmeric for orange coloring. A lot of these are great for not just colors, but flavors. And a lot of this stuff does not need to look neon. It just doesn't. So I was super stoked when we did this. And I feel like this, along with closing the grass loophole, is just the start of cleaning up that base level of our ingredient mix here. And he said, yeah, here we go. The next post in this chain is he's going to ban every toxic additive he can. And this is actually a clip. So I'm going to play this clip. It's 1 minute and 20 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. This is Bobby talking about banning as many toxic additives as he can.
And we're going to get rid of the dyes, and one by one, we're going to get rid of every ingredient and additive in school in food that we can legally get addressed. One of the problems is that the industry, which all of these industries, cast a dark shadow historically over this agency. And there's so many conflicts that we are now systematically eliminating. That has allowed them to suppress the science. There's shockingly few studies, even on food dyes, on all these other ingredients as well. And Jay Bhattacharya, who is here and who is running, the director of NIH, is now narrowly targeting these kind of food additives for the scientific study, so that one by one we can start eliminating them where they can. Where we can't, there's things that we'll never be able to eliminate, like sugar. And sugar is poison. And Americans need to know that. It is poisoning us. It is giving us a diabetes crisis. When I was a kid, I always say this: the typical pediatrician would see 1 case of diabetes in his lifetime. Today, it's 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door.
How was the audio on that? Give me a thumbs up if that sounded okay, just so I know if I play another clip. Was that audio okay? Someone give me a thumbs up. Well, anyway, I'm going to assume the audio was okay unless otherwise noted. So thank you, Frank. I really appreciate that, man. So banning all these toxic food additives, and I really appreciate Bobby at the end there talking about sugar. Now, sugar is a bit of a complicated topic, and there's some controversy around it, right? So sugar in general, especially like cane sugar and especially high fructose corn syrup. And in particular, when we had like the fat scare in the 90s, where all these companies decided to go low fat, no fat, but they ended up with a bunch of sugar in them. This didn't do us any good. Fat's a critical nutrient, and you don't actually get fat off consuming fat. You get fat, for one thing, over consuming more calories than you burn. And apparently sugars can really cause the storage of fat. Because when your body gets sugar adapted and you're taking in fat, the body will burn the sugar first and store the fat instead. Now, that doesn't happen for me. I'm kind of on the other side of the spectrum. I skew chronically underweight, and I really struggle to gain weight. And that's because I've got some chronic health conditions that go all the way back from when I was a kid. And I might have even inherited some from my mom and from the stress she was undergoing when I was in her womb. But Some diet philosophies, like I've been reading a lot on Twitter, at least, about the Ray Peat diet, are actually predicated on a fair amount of healthy carbs, but we're not talking about eating, Reese's peanut butter cups all day. We're talking about fresh fruit and things like rice. And I'm really not sure, but Bobby's right. We've got a diabetes epidemic, and I'm sure it's a confluence of factors here. I'm sure it's a lot of the medications we're taking. It's probably a lot of the microplastics and heavy metals and all these other exposures we have that are compromising our immune system. They're compromising our organ function. And then when you stack on top of that entirely, like atrociously too much sugar, and sure enough, we're getting diabetes. And, going back to what Matt Cormier, Health Uncensored, has been really worried about, the phenomenon of global body temperatures dropping. And so our immune systems are already by default compromised. And then you stack that sugar on top. Plus, sugar is a breeding ground for a lot of the bacteria that we don't want in our microbiome, like Candida. And just all this stuff just stacks on top of each other. So anyway, moving on, we have a mention about the autism epidemic, and Bobby promising that we will have an answer to the cause of autism by September. Now, this is interesting because, again, this goes back to Matt Cormier's work, because we haven't heard Bobby talk about, he's talked about vaccines and autism, but he hasn't talked about encephalitis, the inflammation in the brain that has, according to Matt and the studies he's pulled together, shown that this encephalitis in the brain is maybe more specifically the trigger for symptoms of autism. And so I'm very curious what Bobby ends up with here. And I'm worried if he tries to move too fast just to have an answer quickly, that it might not have the nuance that it deserves. I do have a base level of trust that Bobby cares a lot about getting the right answer. So I'm looking forward to what he comes up with. And I'll be very interested if he doesn't end up mentioning encephalitis at all. And if he does, I'm going to be especially impressed with Matt's work, because I haven't heard about this, and he came like ringing alarm bells to us about it. Moving on, we have a mention of exposing bad science. Bobby says we're going to do unbiased science on everything from chemtrails to SSRIs. He's already exposed the autism literature, saying they've never compared vaccinated to unvaccinated kids. So this is an issue we talk about a lot on this, so I won't spend too much time on it today, but we really know, obviously, that we have to make these connections. We have to figure out where the connections are, get to the root causes. If it's the vaccines, we have to adjust. We have to do studies to figure out whether we can create these vaccines in safe ways. I know a lot of people assume that's not possible, and I'm open to that, but I'm also open to them being done in ways that are healthy. I'm open to the idea that, at the very least, children don't need the COVID vaccine. Children don't need the hepatitis vaccine. The only way you're getting hepatitis is by sharing drug needles or sexual contact. Children don't need that vaccine. It may be that you got to wait until kids are 1, 3, 5, 10, 12 years old before they get most of these vaccines. And it's possible the vaccines just weren't the right direction to go at all. And I am not the one to make that decision or claim. I'm just glad to see we're starting to do the science on it, Hey, Johnny, how you doing, buddy? Glad to see you here, man. Thanks for being here, Johnny. We're just running through a couple of American values posts that have some nice recaps on what's been going on both in the last week and the first 100 days of the administration. And I'm actually most of the way through it here. A mention again about the chemicals in the grass loophole. Bobby's getting rid of the generally recognized as safe program and about to ban thousands of toxic food additives. We already spoke about that. Here's an interesting one. Talking about releasing the new dietary guidelines for 2025 to 2030. And I heard about this a few weeks ago. So when Trump came in and put Bobby in place, Bobby found that the food guidelines, the dietary guidelines left by the Biden administration, were 453 pages long. And how long do the dietary guidelines actually have to be comprehensive, let alone to be comprehensible, to be understandable by people? And if I remember correctly, Bobby said, essentially, this thing is nonsense, as is the food pyramid, of course. And a lot of us know that the food pyramid is nonsense. And what he's going to come back with is basically like a 3-page memo. And it's probably going to basically say, you know, eat red meat, drink raw milk, stop eating fake shit. You know, I mean, I don't know what it's actually going to say, but it's going to be a lot simpler. And it's going to probably put nourishing, whole, single ingredient foods first in our dietary priorities again. And to me, that just seems obvious. I've been trying for a while, but it's hard. And it's hard when you don't have enough time in the day to do cooking. So, you know, half the battle, I think, is showing people how to easily meal prep and then not get bored by prepping sort of like an instant pot or a large casserole with a dish that you'll end up eating for 2 or 3 days. But those single ingredient foods is a lot of one pot meals. You know, you throw a pot on the stove, you throw 3 or 4 ingredients in there and you just let it run and you got a delicious, wholesome meal. It's not actually that complicated, but it does take understanding and it does take caring. And so I'm glad more and more people are starting to care about that. And I'm also thrilled that we've got Bobby increasing standards so that the floor rises. So even if you go and buy the exact same things you've always been buying, they're going to be better. Not great, but better. And I just think that's super important. We have Operation Stork Speed. And we did bring this up just a little bit earlier in the show. And we've talked about this before on the podcast, on the Wednesday Club MAHA podcast. So this is a whole project to get rid of the harmful chemicals in baby food and baby formula. And apparently there's like thousands of them. Kyle Kemper, one of the founders and co-hosts of the Club MAHA podcast, his wife, Brittany, they have 6 kids. And she educated me about this. She has to specifically find, I think it's a Swiss or a German brand of baby formula just to get away from the chemicals. And then she found out something horrifying. The last couple times she bought it, she noticed the label looked a little different. Same brand, same product, but the label looked a little different. Didn't think anything of it and bought it. And they had watered down the ingredients closer to what Americans can get away with. And it too had the bad stuff in it. And she had to find a direct from Europe source for that product. And this is just outrageous. You should be able to buy any baby formula or baby food on the shelf and know that it's made of whole food. So it looks like we're moving towards that, thankfully. Let's see. Is there anything else on this list? Let's see here. Utah banned fluoride. Arizona passed the Arizona Healthy Schools Act, which banned public schools from serving ultra-processed foods with harmful additives such as artificial dyes. Super big deal. This is something that I'm especially interested in, because the foods that we're feeding kids in school, it's crap. It's been crap for decades. I'm still traumatized by the Mexican pizza in the 90s. I mean, dear God, this stuff was bad. The cheese steaks, the steak sandwiches, and it was like steakums and brominated bread. It was horrifying. It was absolutely terrible. And there's no reason we should be doing this. It's such a great place to start feeding better foods to kids, especially in public schools where at home they might not be eating well. At the very least, they can get one good meal a day running through the public schools. And we had a guest on a while back, I can't remember which one, talking about just how bad public school meals have gotten. At one point, and this might still be ongoing, they actually contracted with the Department of Defense to provide some of the school meals, and what they were getting was literally moldy. So not only was it already low quality, highly processed, low nutrition, it was also literally rotten. And this is, I would go as far as to say it's a crime against humanity. You've got someone forced. It's called the compulsory education system for a reason. They're required to be there, and then you feed them toxic food. I just can't stand it. It really pisses me off. So it's nice to see Arizona has banned this. West Virginia banned food dyes, and it might just be from the school meals. I don't remember if they banned it statewide generally. One of my very best friends, his name is Troy Wipongwe. He's the director at the College of William and Mary. He's the director of innovation and entrepreneurship in conservation. He's a total badass, just a brilliant, brilliant guy and a dear brother of mine. And he's working with the USDA, and I pray they did not end this program, because he has grants with the USDA to work in Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina to craft local, regional, seasonal meal plans for the schools. Troy's main focus right now is regenerative agriculture. And we're not just talking like farming agriculture, you know, like big fields full of a single crop. We're talking multi-cropping, and we're talking food forestry. And for anyone who's not familiar with the term, food forestry it's literally what it sounds like. You take a forest ecosystem, you've got canopy crops, you've got ground cover crops, you've got shrubs and taproots, and you utilize all those roles in the ecosystem. All those roles are filled either by plants that produce an agricultural product for humans, or plants that nourish the soil. For instance, tap-rooted plants will draw nutrients from deeper in the soil up to the surface for those shallower rooted plants to take advantage of. And some of these plants will also, for instance, attract the type of wildlife and plants and pollinators that will either like pollinate the other things or will address pests. So like right now you got a monoculture and we're blasting with pesticides to get rid of pests, but oftentimes there's a plant you can grow that attracts other things that then eat those pests. And that's just how an ecosystem works. And this really cuts to the heart of the issue for me in a lot of ways, is this idea of biomimicry, of aligning not just our food systems, but in MAHA, let's talk about this food and medicine, aligning our food and medicine systems with nature. We evolved with nature. Even all the medicines we currently get today, all those pharmaceuticals, all those drugs, where do you think they get them? They're often researching and sometimes synthesizing chemicals and molecules that they're finding in nature, in plants and animals and bacteria and fungi. And they're isolating them and or synthesizing them mostly because then they can patent them and then make a shit ton of money. Meanwhile, we know that, for instance, things like ginger and turmeric are great for inflammation, but no one's going to spend the hundreds of millions of dollars it takes to run ginger and turmeric through the FDA approval process because they can't patent it. So you can't prescribe turmeric. You can't prescribe ginger, which is just outrageous. So the idea of food forestry means that we can actually grow. And another thing about food forestry is you actually get an incredible density of food per acre. It takes more labor input, especially to get it going. But once you have a healthy forest ecosystem, it actually requires very little input in labor. And if I understand correctly, it requires zero or extremely little input in pesticides. And the pesticides you use can be things that are non-harmful. You know, we're not talking glyphosate here. And there's other concepts like ferment gardening, where you intentionally enrich your soils with beneficial bacteria. I know my housemate right now, I live with my buddy, and we're in a rental property because a tree fell on his house. So his house is going through some major renovations. But he's got like an acre of property, and most of it is down by a stream, sort of like down a little hill. And around that stream are all these puddles. And during the summer, it is nasty with mosquitoes. So what he's doing is he's going down to all these still water puddles, and he's pouring ferments in them. He's pouring live bacteria into these puddles, specific bacteria that are known to consume mosquito larvae and mosquito eggs. And so sure enough, he's been doing this for a couple years now, and he's got almost no mosquitoes. Imagine that. So instead of carpet bombing communities with DEET, right? We can be seeding all of these pools and standing water situations with beneficial bacteria and not having to worry about it. So yeah, and we'll probably end up doing a space, or I'd love to bring a guest on to the Club MAHA podcast on a Wednesday sometime to talk about food forestry. We'll probably bring on my buddy Troy, or ferment gardening. All these other topics, they're so interesting. And they get into this idea of aligning, even in the modern day, aligning our industry and aligning our civilizational infrastructure with the nature we inherently came from. We came from this. It's God's earth. It's incredibly sophisticated. It's really a beautiful thing. And there's no reason we can't keep going in that direction, even though we also have managed to create these incredible tools like phones and automobiles and airplanes and all this other crazy stuff. So moving on, just a couple of more things here. Bobby says that thanks to Doge, HHS has saved $67 billion. That's pretty cool. Canceled a $14 billion in COVID-related grants because, come on, it's over. Let's move on. They rescoped and or didn't renew 5,000 contracts, resulting in $17 billion in savings. $10 billion by requiring individuals to produce proof of income to qualify for federal subsidies, and another $7 billion by capping NIH grant indirect costs at 15%. And indirect costs, I don't know if that's like administrative costs or whatever, but I assume what they mean is that more of the money going out for NIH grants is actually going to go towards the specific and direct conduction of the science, which is obviously why we're funding these grants to begin with. Let's see here. We also have, and I think this is the last point in this thread, is reviewing the vaccine literature. There have been rumors of Kennedy revoking the COVID vaccine from the childhood vaccine schedule. I know this hasn't happened yet, and this is a big thing a lot of people are complaining about. And I guess all I'll say about that is don't be surprised if it happens. And I really do hope to see that be the case. That's all for this thread. And unless anyone wants to jump up here and talk more about one of these topics or bring up a topic of your own, I wouldn't mind keeping this at a tight 1 hour. Like I said, we switched up the schedule big time, and we're probably only committing to doing these spaces once a week on Mondays until I hit the lottery and can do these 3 times a week again. But I hope these will be like really information dense. And then also, if we have a guest in a specific topic, we can run for 2 hours, or if the conversation is really organic. And I really want this to still be very much a community space where we're having a lot more just positive conversation. Tucker, I see you down there, bro. I can't wait to have more to talk about Tennessee. I hope you've connected on the back channels with Levi. Levi is the chair of the We the People Party, and I'm really excited to do a bunch of work with him over the coming election cycle. This is an opportunity for us to really focus on the independent candidates and making sure that we actually break up the uniparty. And by the way, guys, having really shifted up the flow here and the vibe, I'd love some feedback. You know, I don't have my co-host today. I don't have America Mission today, and that's okay. I'm in this for the long haul, and I'm really cool with this being a very organic and naturally growing community project. So that's why we have the Club MAHA community now. I'm hoping you guys post in there. I'm hoping you connect with each other in there. I hope we can learn from each other. And I hope more of you over time will be comfortable jumping up here on stage and we can really have a conversation together. But please do either drop in the purple pill here. And if you're not a member of the Club MAHA community, just click up there at the top and join the Club MAHA community. That way you can drop comments in the purple pill. And also either post in the Club MAHA community, tag me in a post, DM me, any way you want to get me some feedback, ideas for topics, ideas for guests. Tell me I'm doing a terrible job. Tell me I'm doing a great job. You know, anything you want to let me know would be really helpful. This is a space for all of us. This is a community for all of us. This is about policy. This is about what Bobby is up to on our behalf. This is about the upcoming midterm elections. This is about the education about things we can do in our own individual lives to be more healthy, what we can do in our households, in our communities. This is also about stitching together the coalition of organizations that are all working in various aspects in this movement. And this is about ideally also surfacing for you guys really great companies. And this isn't meant to be like crass commercial advertising, though we might do like affiliate links when we find great companies, so that if you do choose to buy products from them, this project will get a small amount of money. It helps fund us. It gets us a little closer to people like me being able to do it full time. But there are some companies I can name. Sarva Organics. This guy Josh, it's like a one-man show. He does wonderful supplements in the Ayurvedic tradition, which is sort of like the Indian medicine tradition. And it's beautiful. All his ingredients are pristine. He has like 18 different products. There's a vitamin C product based on all whole foods like acerola cherry. There's this really potent probiotic product, and it's in a powder instead of pills. And you just use like, I think like a third of a teaspoon. You can stir it into oatmeal or drink it in water or anything like that. And it includes soil-based organisms, which a lot of probiotics don't include. He's got meal replacements and protein powders. Excuse me. He has a coffee amendment called MAHA chocolate that you add to coffee. And it was really fun because MAHA is actually a word in Hindi that means great. And so when the MAHA movement came up, he's like, this is a match made in heaven. And that's why he reached out to us to begin with. And that MAHA chocolate is awesome. It's really nice stuff. And if you go to sarvaorganics.com, that's SARVAA, sarvaorganics.com. I think you can get 10% off a purchase if you use the code Club MAHA. And Josh is a really great guy. We've had him on, and we'll have him on again. So that's great for supplements. We're also working with the Beef Initiative. And the Beef Initiative, this is another awesome project. They are stitching together the fabric of wonderful family-owned ranchers across the country that are producing, grass-fed, grass-finished, small family ranches, just really, really wonderful operations. And you can go to beefmaps.com, which is one of their projects, and find a rancher near you. And what they like to say is shake your rancher's hand, like know where your food is coming from. So they've got a whole map, and you can see ranchers across the country. You can click on those ranchers and see a little story about them and know how they raise their food. And hey, Tucker, I see you there. I'll get to you in just a second, buddy. And if you want to support Club MAHA and get some of the best beef you've ever had in your life, and I'm serious about this, go to beefiniative.com/pages/Club MAHA. And they got a whole page for us. We're actually going to be integrating it into the clubmaha.com website here soon. They have a whole page for us with, I think, 4 beef packages. Those all come from Ebersol Ranch Mama Shannon. She does grass-fed, grass-finished. It is literally the cleanest beef I've ever tasted in my life. I eat a little bit of their ground beef just about every single day. I tried some of their fajita strips last week. They were phenomenal. Next, I'm going to get some of their steaks. It's excellent. And if you buy from that website, from beefiniative.com/pages/Club MAHA, you'll get a little discount, and we'll get a little piece too. And before I get to you, Tucker, the one other person that I want to shout out right now is Cooking with Chris. I hired Cooking with Chris. He's an amazing account. I highly recommend everyone follow him. He's constantly posting his farmers market and his grocery store hauls of the sort of like the foods that are safe to buy from Costco, from Sprouts, and from the farmers market, and then recipes. And he's got a recipe book. So his content just from his posts are fantastic. But then on top of that, he works with individuals to heal their gut. And I've been dealing with this for my whole life, but especially the last 15 years. I'm desperate. I'm chronically ill. I have a skin condition that flares up all the time. I can't gain weight. I can't gain muscle. I've got attention issues, mood balance issues. It's tough. It really hurts. And I've been shooting in the dark for years, and I'm tired of it. So I hired Chris, and this is what he does. For like $250, he'll put together a food plan for you. But if you really want to know what's going on with you, and most of us are struggling with something, the full plan includes lab work. We're talking blood, stool, I think urine or saliva, and we find out what are our hormones, what is our gut microbiome, our bacteria makeup, what is our vitamin D concentration. It's like all this stuff, because we need to figure out individually what's happening for ourselves. And then once we have that, then we start crafting a diet plan, and we start cataloging which foods are causing an inflammatory response, and we start eliminating those foods. And a lot of these diets can be extremely restrictive and boring, and frankly will pull the joy right out of your life, or at least right out of your food life. And the thing Chris focuses on is making sure that your diet meets your needs and is nourishing, things like bone broth and lean red meat and pesticide-free produce and et cetera and et cetera. But making sure you enjoy it. He's got a cookbook with like 150 recipes, and he will tailor it to your needs. And if you just follow his account, Cook with Chris, if you just search Cooking with Chris, you'll find his account, and you shoot him a DM and you mention Club MAHA, he'll give you a discount on either the food plan, the diet plan basically, or the full package. If you join either of those plans and hit me up, we'll create a group chat and we'll go through this together. What I've pledged personally is that this process I'm doing publicly. Last Wednesday, Chris and I, in a space, did an entire intake process for me. He asked all sorts of personal questions, and I answered them vulnerably and publicly on air in a space that we were hosting here, just for one, to be vulnerable, to show people the kinds of things. Like, I know you're going through something. Most of us are going through something with our health, and it probably leads back to our gut, our diet, not just that, lifestyle, right? Our circadian rhythm. Are we going to bed and waking up at the right times? Are we eliminating blue light at night? All this sort of stuff. If you join the program with Chris, hit me up. We'll go through this process together. We'll create a whole community around people that are taking this seriously and taking charge of our health. Because we can't rely on Bobby to do this just through the food and the medicine. If we're chronically ill, and most of us are, we have to figure out exactly what that means for us and then take the steps that it requires to address it. So anyway, those are a few of the wonderful partners we're working with that you can actually like reach out to now and just get some extra great stuff into your life. And I thank you for bearing with me while I share those with you. And with that, Tucker, how you doing, man? It is always great to see you.
Hey, everybody. Hope you can hear me good. I'm going area with kind of bad internet.
You're a little in and out, but why don't you go for it? And if we can't pick up what you're putting down, I'll let you know.
Okay, man, I really liked what you said about getting on top of your gut health, because I had a conversation with my doctor a few months ago about my blood pressure. And she said my blood pressure was a little high and she wanted to put me on a medication.
She wanted to put you on statins, didn't she?
Yeah, and I'm only 28 years old.
Bro, and those statins, they cause all sorts of issues. When you're on them for life. And what my doctor ended up telling me, because he tried to put me on statins once too, it takes like several years for them to even do what they claim to do, and they will only reduce your risk of a heart attack by like 10%. It's outrageous.
Yeah, so then the doctor asked me, she said, well, do you do a low sodium diet? And I said, I don't believe in that. I believe that I need all of my electrolytes, and I sweat a lot every day, and I need all of the salt that I intake. I don't go out of my way to get extra salt.
Yep. But now here's a question for you, because my understanding on the salt thing, it's not about how much salt you take in, but salt is on a polar spectrum with potassium. So what you need is a balanced intake between your sodium and your potassium.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So I told her that I would try to get all of my electrolytes through a lot of the teas that I drink and a lot of my food and make a few supplements. And she said, oh, well, you could just buy Pedialyte. And I said, I shouldn't have to buy a separate product to do what my diet should do.
Well done, man. And I'll tell you, if you keep finding that your doctor is just not on the same page with you philosophically, it is appropriate to try to find another primary care physician. And it's not easy because most of them are not in it. They're not really in this mindset with us yet, but it's worth trying to find one. And one tip I'll give you, and this isn't a silver bullet, most doctors are what's called allopathic. And allopathic doctors don't look at your body, generally speaking, systemically. They look at it atomically. They look at your brain, they look at your liver, they look at your lungs, they look at your spleen, etc. There's something called a doctor of osteopathy. And if you're looking on your health insurance and they got a list of doctors in network, what you'll see next to the doctors of osteopathy, they're called a DO.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you look around and you reach out to a few DOs, they're fully board certified physicians, primary care physicians, but they're called a DO. And doctors of osteopathy, their practice is predicated on the body systemically, and it's not perfect, but I find it's at least a little better.
Yeah, exactly. That's good to hear, man. Thank you for that advice.
For sure, man.
And then on top of that, I just wanted to say that, in the past 2 years, I've found out that your front yard in the forest contains a lot of your pharmaceutical needs.
Yeah.
If just learn about some of these weeds and some of these wildflowers and other plants.
Dandelion, for instance, it's great for I believe your kidneys. And you can consume in various ways, both the flowers, the leaves, and the roots. Roasted dandelion tea is great for kidneys. But yeah, man, you're absolutely right. One thing to consider, especially if you live in the suburbs or an urban environment, is that you may not want to harvest right by the road because you got all the exhaust, right? You got all the exhaust hitting those plants from the vehicles. But you're absolutely right. And I was mentioning this before, all the pharmaceuticals are coming from plants and animals and fungi and bacteria anyway. They're just isolating it and synthesizing it so they can patent and make money off it.
So this started being really fun for me to do about 2 years ago. I highly recommend all of you do it. Go out in your front yard and find a random weed or a random plant and just take a picture of it with your Google lens and just let Google tell you what that plant is. It'll tell you what the uses for it are. It'll tell you if you can eat it. It'll tell you everything about it. And it has opened up a whole new world for me, healing myself just through my front yard.
Dude, that's so badass. And if you're on Apple, I know a lot of folks are on iPhone. I am. Excuse me. There are third-party applications that do the same thing. I don't know which ones by name that will actually give you all like medical uses for them, but there are apps that will allow you to identify the plant, and then you can just go to like your favorite LLM, your ChatGPT, or Grok here on X, and just ask the question: what are the medicinal properties or the nutrition facts about this plant, and how do I use it? That's a great call, Tucker.
Exactly.
And
generally, most of these plants, you can mix with a green tea and just sweeten the taste with maybe some honey and some lemon. And it's been a pretty fun hobby, kind of exploring the taste of these teas.
That's cool, man. I love that. And I'll tell you, man, I might have mentioned this to you before. You're in Tennessee, right? You're in like the Chattanooga area. It's near the top of my list when it comes time for me to start setting down some roots or picking a place to live for like a year or two. It's really near the top of the list because I keep hearing beautiful things about Tennessee. I saw a report recently about people moving from one state to another, and the people who regretted their move the least were people that moved from someplace to Tennessee. It was at the very top of the list.
It is a beautiful state, and I'm proud to call this place my home. I don't really see ever calling anywhere else home. I think I'm going to stay here.
And you were born and raised there?
Yes, sir.
That's cool, man. Yeah, Tennessee is gorgeous. For anyone who doesn't know, it is lush. It has those gorgeous mountains, loads and loads of forest. I assume it's a beautiful agricultural state too, and it's proper South. They got great barbecue. They got great culture, great music. It is just a beautiful place. I'm looking forward to spending a lot more time.
And really good Native American history as well, because Tennessee actually means land where the rivers meet. And
Oh, cool.
Chattanooga, where I live, actually means point of the rock.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, my buddy Troy that I mentioned just a little bit ago he's Native American himself. So a lot of what he's been doing with food forestry and otherwise, and crafting local seasonal meal plans for public schools is predicated on indigenous native plants. And we've also been starting a business called Indigeneity, where the first product it's called Yapon Holly. A lot of folks, you guys have probably heard of yerba mate, which comes from Brazil. Yapon Holly is the North American cousin. Its natural growing range is, I believe, from North Carolina down to Florida and over to about Louisiana.
Oh, yes, it's a natural way to find caffeine.
That's right. That's right. The Yapon Holly, if Troy's correct about this, has the highest caffeine concentration of any plant that grows natively in North America.
Wow.
And it's a tasty tea. I've got some samples here in my house. It's really nice. And he's got a couple blends. If you go to Indigeneity, spelled TEA.com, he's got some really nice blends that include some other North American heritage plants in them. There's one with a North American version of anise. So it's got that really gentle, nice, like licorice flavor. He's got some with like juniper berry. It's really cool, man. But yeah, Tennessee, I believe it's got beautiful beautiful Native American history. I'd love to explore that a little further too. I see we got Yvonne here. Hey, welcome back, Yvonne. What's going on?
Hi, hi everyone. I just wanted to mention that, the herbal dictionaries or medica materias, the same ones that we used centuries ago are still the same herbs and have the same properties. We've, of course, updated, but you can get a copy of an herbal directory from your library. And nowadays, most libraries have online and, they have audio. And so you can just have a resource for free from your library to have an herbal book available to you. And once you've seen a couple, you recognize that the same herbs are just the same as they've always been. And it's very comforting to know. And it helps you, sometimes looking at different herbs, you'll get a feel for those that are similar, but you'll just know the one that is perfect for you. And working with a practitioner who does kinesiology or muscle testing or energy testing, they'll feel your body respond, and a strong response is always telling you that that's the best herb or treatment or person or anything for you. So I just wanted to add that.
I love that. And it's really cool because we have sort of upgraded these tools over time for modern technology. So you can probably find a lot of these references online. And then, you couple that with the smartphone app where you can just take a picture of a plant, find out exactly what it is, and then go look it up online. And then if you got a practitioner, like Yvonne is saying, they can help you figure out whether it's right for you. And then coupling it again with modern technology, with doing stuff like what Cooking with Chris does, which is starts off with lab tests to figure out like what is your actual gut biome right now, and are there any other obvious triggers? You can get a genetic test, and you need to find one that's HIPAA compliant because a lot of these gene companies will sell your data, and you can't really trust them. I made the mistake of giving mine to Ancestry.com years ago. But some of these companies are HIPAA compliant and will do genetic screenings to let you know if you have certain gene mutations. Like the one I hear about most is the MTHFR mutation, which I always think of as MRFer. But the MTHFR gene mutation, I think 30% of either Americans or humans generally have, means you can't process folic acid properly. And folic acid, if I understand correctly, is a very popular additive in enriched flour. So a lot of us have this gene mutation, and then we eat this bread. And we're talking like all the bread at your fast food restaurants, probably even your sit-down restaurants. Most of the stuff you get at the grocery store, it's enriched flour, and it's got this folic acid in it, which not only is not giving you the folate you need. If you have this mutation, what you need is methylfolate, the form that your body can just use as is. Not only is it not giving you the folate you need, it can cause significant inflammation, which puts your body in crisis mode, prevents you from uptaking other nutrients, and putting you at compromised immune function, which makes you at more risk for other problems. So these things stack on each other, and being able to merge these old world heritage wisdom we've been developing for thousands of years with this modern technology, I think is a really powerful combination. And Bobby talks about this a lot too. Hey, Destiny, welcome. How you doing?
Hey guys, I just wanted to chime in. I heard you talk about the MTHFR gene mutation. I have that gene mutation.
I'm looking forward to finding out if I've got it. I probably do.
You probably do. Most people do. And there's two different subsets of it. There's one that's a C and an A, and they have different numbers that go along with them. But you just kind of call them C version and the A version. I have the more rare version, which is the A version, and most people have, I think, the C version.
You are a rare breed, Destiny. I always knew that.
I don't know if it's a good thing or not. I don't know how, I actually had a geneticist that took, a long time ago, I was on psychiatric medication for my depression. And thank goodness I'm not on any medications anymore. But about 10 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was, it was difficult, but I'm really glad I'm not on them anymore. I feel much better. Not that they didn't serve their purpose. I think they did. But it's just better to rely on what the good Lord gives you. So I got off the medication, but in order to get off the medication, she wanted to check my neural pathways and my chemical pathways genetically to make sure that coming off of it wasn't going to be very difficult for me. And so, to see if maybe they needed a buffer substance or something so that it wasn't causing. And that's when they caught that genetic mutation in my scans. And she's like, oh, well, you're MTHFR or you're A198. And I was like, oh, wow, well, I don't know what that means. So she explained it. And ever since I do take methylfolate, I take L5 methylfolate, and I take it every day. I do notice that, one thing it did for me, and why I think it's especially important for women, is that it helped me regulate my hormones, and my emotional stress was just really able to manage again. And I swear, my whole life was marred by, just a lot of emotional problems. And the whole time I tried everything.
Would this include things like bipolar? Like some people might just not be getting
Yes, I was misdiagnosed. Before being on methylfolate as being bipolar.
Tell my girlfriend about this.
Yes.
She's diagnosed bipolar, but she might just be inflamed and not getting the right.
It could be severe depletion of a lot of hormones, and you're not absorbing that correctly without your methylfolate. I would definitely look into it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Two quick questions. One, do you know the difference between the version you have and the more common version? And then the second question, what foods can you find methylfolate in for folks who prefer to get it from their food than from a supplement?
I think if you get you'd have to go to a real bakery. But sourdough is supposed to have the actual folate that's methylized.
Because the sourdough culture itself produces it?
I believe it with the folate it's in it. It creates some sort of, that's what I was told. I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure
that's cool.
Sourdough.
Well, I'll ask Chris because Cooking with Chris focuses a lot on, he does eat some bread. He doesn't say avoid it entirely, but he makes sure to gets the good stuff, and he always gets sourdough.
Always sourdough.
Always sourdough.
Yes, especially for, I'm going to say this a lot, especially for women, because sourdough kills yeast right in the body. And so women have more yeast in the body than men generally. Yep. And so that causes a lot of inflammation problems on its own. It's a silent killer of women is yeast. Of men too, but to a larger degree women. And the difference, although I know the difference is, as my doctor explained it to me, is that they're virtually the same. They just there's two different pathways that they can be registered in the brain. One goes through one route, one goes through the other. And that one is more common and one is least common. But when it comes to taking the methylfolate, there should not be a difference. It should effectively treat both.
Is there an effective difference otherwise between the two versions?
Not that I know of, but I'm not a geneticist. I could ask my doctor.
Yeah, no, fair. That's cool. I was just curious.
But yeah, it's one of those things that like I remember when she told me, I was like, how come no one's ever said this? Because they make it such a point to put on Kellogg's cereal and all the boxes of cereal, like got your, folic acid and your vitamin A. Like they brag about all these vitamins that they have in there, but they're not bioavailable. They're not bioavailable for the average person. So like you're essentially just eating nothing
Right.
beneficial.
Well, and like worse than nothing, because a lot of these things, if you're not processing them properly, act as anti-nutrients. And I hear a lot mentioned, and I don't know the truth of it. I don't know the truth about a lot of this stuff because I'm not a researcher myself, but that the enriched flours, the iron they put in it, the folate they put in it, and various other things, they act like, yay, we put vitamins in this stuff. And it's actually an anti-nutrient. It's actually causing you harm that prevents you from uptaking the other nutrients that are in your food. So it's not even like a lot of this stuff is neutral. It's actively doing you harm.
Yeah, and doctors all know that. And the problem is, especially, I'm going to say this again, especially for women, folic acid is vital for a healthy birth and a healthy baby. And it's necessary. And it's usually super depleted in women already, which is why they give you prenatals. The number one ingredient in prenatals is usually folic acid.
Really?
So, yes. And so,
is this anything related to women's cycles? Like, for instance, you might need more iron at certain times of the month?
Absolutely. I mean, we should be supplementing, I think, iron anyways. I have dysmenorrhea because I have endometriosis. So I have to always take iron. If not, I'll faint all the time. So
sure. And do you take that as a supplement, or do you just get like red meat or like a good dark chocolate? How do you like to take it?
I cook out of cast iron skillets. Everything I cook out of is out of cast iron to get my iron. So.
Right on. I love that. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of cast iron. I just got myself this cute little 4 or 4.5 inch cast iron. There's this guy here on X. His name is Carrie Kelly. And he does a lot of like mostly like he does low carb, not exactly carnivore, but low carb diet stuff. And so one of the bread alternatives he sort of posts about all the time, he makes a bread alternative out of eggs and gelatin powder. And if you mix some gelatin powder into your eggs and beat it like a scrambled egg, and then cook it in a small skillet, like a 4-inch skillet, what it creates is essentially a bun made of eggs and gelatin. See, like you make 2 of those and shove a burger patty or something between it, and you got yourself a carnivore burger that's just loaded with nutrients and gelatin maxing. And yeah, it's actually the only cast iron I have right now because I moved all the way from the West Coast and I had a limit on the amount of weight I could carry. So obviously a 16-pound skillet wasn't really something I could throw in my car and ship across the country, but I'll be getting a new one here soon. In the meantime, I am using a ceramic skillet, which is okay, but it's not the best. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the cast iron. So we've been going for like an hour and a half. I've got another half hour before I need to get back to door dashing because that's my income lately. And I'll tell you, I've really been enjoying it on a number of levels. One, I was sitting inside all the time, for months, and the door dashing, it's got me out in the sun. I live in a beautiful area. It's rural. So it's all farmland and forest and the Chesapeake Bay. I'm getting steps in because every 10, 20 minutes I'm getting out of the car and I'm walking into a restaurant or walking up to somebody's front door, getting a lot of sunshine now, a lot of fresh air. It feels great. And I'm the type that once I have to hit go mode, if I have a very clear path, I can start doing something, I will work all the time. So like last week I worked 7 days and I probably put in 10 hours a day. And I'm not making a ton of money. I probably have skills that if I knew how to apply them properly, I could be making crazy money, but I'm too into the grassroots stuff. I really want to have a free form schedule that allows me to focus on community building and cause-based messaging and active education and activation. It just matters too much. And too many of the most wonderful experiences of my life have been in situations like this. And I just love this MAHA movement. So I know there's big organizations that have a lot of money and they do a lot of like big stuff. They do the lobbying and they do big name polished content. The grassroots I do is organic. We build community. You'll find that there's 10, 20, 40, 50, maybe 100 of us that just love hanging out together. And if we do that enough, and a few of us have like natural leadership inclinations, and we focus and we're dedicated, we can move mountains. We can do anything, but it doesn't happen overnight. It starts off with these conversations. We realize we really like each other, and we realize we really care about each other. And over time, it all sort of builds. And I've been really, really honored and proud of the people that have shown up time and time again for these conversations, for the organizations that have found their way to us, like America Mission, who couldn't be here today, the Council on Domestic Relations, who's doing amazing coalition building and sort of like a back of house stuff. They're not really like public forward, but they're doing incredible work. They've brought so many of our guests to the table. The Beef Initiative, Sarva Organics, like this was all just natural relationship building over time. And we're going to keep doing that. And we're going to keep having great conversations and getting to know each other better, making better decisions in our lives, getting more aware of what's happening in our communities. And I just think it's going to be a beautiful thing over the coming months and the coming years. And, you know, these things naturally ebb and flow. You might find yourself hanging out with us all the time for a few months and then naturally sort of falling away. And that's okay. We love you. We're so grateful for your time here. And we hope you take whatever you gain from your time here with you and share it with others, because it's the ripple effect. You tell one person and they might be the perfect person to shout it from the mountaintops, and you don't know until it happens. So every little bit we do helps. Every conversation, every moment you spare to hear what someone else is going through, and then maybe be able to share just a little bit of your wisdom or knowledge. It's all a beautiful thing. But anyway, enough of my soapbox. Unless anyone else has anything else they'd like to talk about. And yeah, Destiny, I'll let you go. And then once we get through these last little comments and chit chat, we'll let you guys go for the day. Destiny?
Yeah, I just had a question. You said Chesapeake Bay. Do you live near Virginia?
I do live near Virginia. I'm in Southern Maryland right
Virginia.
now. You're in Virginia.
Yeah.
What part, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in Chesapeake.
Where's Chesapeake, Virginia?
Chesapeake, Virginia is the very bottom of the bay.
Bottom of the bay. Okay. Well, I'm in St. Mary's County.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're close. I'm like Solomon's Island area.
Okay. Awesome.
Probably like an hour or so. Yeah, it's gorgeous here. And I'll tell you, I was really excited. I just made my first visit to the local farmers market. Found like some beautiful strawberries that were pesticide free, organic. Found a whole farm that nerds out about soil quality. I found a farm that does raw dairy. They only sell it for pets, so I can only give it to my dog. He weighs about 150 pounds and sounds a lot like me, but but it was really cool to find that. And I also found out that I live only 45 minutes away from the farmstead that's owned by the founders of the Weston A. Price Foundation. And I don't know how many people actually know what the Weston A. Price Foundation is, but they are OGs. They have been MAHA since before MAHA was MAHA. They preach regenerative agriculture, pristine animal agriculture. The founder, Sally, apparently in a couple of weeks is giving a talk on new mother diets. So that when you're nursing, you're actually producing the best possible nutrition environment for yourself and for your baby. And I just love this. I think this is all just such critical stuff. And now I find out that once a week, I can drive my happy ass down onto the PA Bowen farmstead and get some fantastic dairy, some fantastic meat, and a number of other things. They've got some great ferments from some local makers. They've got some great local honey, and I can help support their farm. And the things I can't get, by the way, I generally buy from Dutch Meadows, DutchMeadowsFarms.com. We don't have an affiliate relationship with them or anything, but they do fantastic raw dairy. They don't have to sell it just for pets, so you don't have to pretend you're feeding it to your cat. They've got great raw dairy, great produce, great beef. They sell a sourdough bread, which I think might even use the heritage einkorn grain. And einkorn wheat is apparently one of these heritage forms of wheat that is more likely to not bother you even if you're gluten sensitive. And then you add the fact that it's sourdough on top, so it's pre-digesting some of the gluten before you even eat it. And it sounds like, from what Destiny says, converting some of that folate into methylfolate. Dutch Meadows Farms is great, and I think they ship around the country. They'll send the dairy and the meats frozen, that sort of thing. They're really worth checking out. I bought some colostrum for them, which is the first milk that the mama cow produces when they have a calf, and it is just super extra abundant in all sorts of nutrients. And they say when you're trying to heal gut conditions, colostrum is one of the best things you can add to your diet. So I'm really excited to throw that in there and see if it helps. But yeah, good shout, Destiny. I don't know if you know of any events going on or if there's any other excuse you can come up with, but I'd love to come pay you a visit.
I don't currently, but you never know what's coming.
Yeah,
up.
but anyhow, this has been lovely, even though it has been 95% me just yammering on. I hope you've enjoyed it. I do really like it when we have more folks up on stage. I'm really grateful to you, Destiny, Tucker, Yvonne, for coming up here and having a chat with me. Clearly, I am capable of filling an hour and a half of just me talking, but my preference is very much for conversation and giving people the floor and letting people communicate with each other. There's not a lot of ego in this for me. It's mostly just a matter of caring and providing a good environment where we can share and learn and grow and activate together. So I'm grateful for you guys spending a little bit of your afternoon with me. I love you so much. And I hope you'll join me again next Monday. The plan is every Monday right here in the Club MAHA community, doing basically a Monday MAHA update space. We'll talk about everything that's been happening over the last week. We might have a guest and and like a topic. We'll make space for these sorts of conversations. And the best way to keep up with it and the best way to really get into it with each other here in the Club MAHA community is to join the Club MAHA community here on X. And there should be a button, if you see Club MAHA community just right at the top of this space, go ahead and click that button and join the community. We'd really love to have you. So once again, I'm really grateful for you guys spending some time with me. Please do leave me some feedback either in the purple pill or a DM or tag me in a post, whatever you want to do. But leave me some feedback because I want to make sure these are high value for everybody, and that we're getting what we need out of me, out of these spaces, and out of each other. So thank you all again. Much love, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
When you just said it's 75% of a lot of times the money, but who wants to hear the harm? You know, it talks about your leg's going to fall off, your eyeball might fall off, you know, all the side effects you get from it. That's not, we want to hear like good products that we can buy, not pharmaceuticals.
Well, that's what we were just talking about, direct to consumer, because the consumer can't buy the drug. They got to get it from the doctor, but you're telling it to the consumer, so they'll call their doctor and say, I want that drug, right? And that's what you want to stop.
Yeah. And, you know, with the tobacco, and with alcohol, you know, which alcohol, when I was a kid, you would not see any alcohol ads on television. Now you're starting to, then you started to see them on cable TV because they didn't sign on to the agreement. And it was a voluntary agreement under threat that they were going to mandate it. And my father was actually involved in both the ban on cigarettes and alcohol when he was in the United States Senate. There is a very bad Supreme Court decision on free speech and commercial advertising. Free speech under the Constitution is political speech, and there are many cases that said it doesn't apply to political advertising, that you can do some regulation of political or commercial advertising. the Supreme Court decision when the last Trump administration tried to change the drug ads to make them report the price of the drug. The Supreme Court said they can't do that. Now, we think we have other arguments. And one of those arguments, the pharmaceutical ads are different than any other ads. Number one, they are advertising a product that the taxpayers are going to have to pay for. If you advertise cigarettes or beer, you're buying it yourself and you're making that choice. And when you buy a pharmaceutical drug, my agency in most cases is going to have to pay for it. So it's the taxpayers are paying for it. So it's a very unusual product in that way. The other thing is that the government, they're getting a tax write-off from that ad. So the taxpayers are paying for the ad, and then the person who gets that product is billing the government for it. And so it's a very different, we think it's sui generis, that it has arguments that we think, and we're looking at this now with the White House, the ways that we can get by that Supreme Court decision.
Okay, Joe, and if you had a number one priority that is top of your list right now, what would it be with 30 seconds left before we go off air?
I have getting the bad ingredients out of food, making sure the vaccines are safe, making sure baby formula is safe and is available. And I would say those are three of my top priorities.
Okay.
I established the new Presidential Commission to Make America Healthy Again, chaired by our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. He's doing a good job, Dr. Oz, right? He's doing a good job. And he's a little bit different, but I want to tell you, he's a great guy. He's a great guy, and he loves his country. Just last week, Bobby announced that we're banning 8 major artificial dyes from our food supply. Sounds good to me.
Ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration. And we are
Hi, everyone. This is Governor Jeff Landry. For years now, we have heard the dangers of ultra-processed foods and chemicals that cause heart disease, diabetes, anxiety, and even cancer. These concerns have fallen on deaf ears and have been drowned out by Big Pharma and Big Food. When President Trump took office and appointed RFK Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary, there was a renewed sense of hope to fix food and nutrition for all Americans. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to listen to moms, doctors, and community leaders testify in favor of Senator McMaster's incredibly important Make America Healthy Again bill. I realized that there is more that we can do, and we can do it right now. That is why today I am pleased to announce that I have signed an executive order banning soda and candy purchases from Louisiana's food stamp program. In Louisiana, we're going to focus on the food that our bodies need to grow and function properly. If you want to consume these items, well, that money should come out of your pocket. Why should we stand idly by while the least fortunate in our state are solicited to eat things that make them less healthy and vulnerable to chronic diseases? That's wrong. The action I'm taking today is just the start of our plans to make Louisiana healthy. It's time to incentivize good food over junk food, exercise over screen time, water over soda. Our nation is stronger when we are healthier. And I'm committed to working alongside President Trump and Secretary Kennedy to bring the Make America Healthy Again movement to every corner of our state.
Right now to change the culture there?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, it's been interesting to watch. Like I'll do some policy change, and you know, people like try to find the worst possible spin for it. I'll give you a couple of examples. So, for instance, I put out a policy to make sure that we have when we use we have animals in research that we look at alternatives. You know, it's very easy, for instance, to cure Alzheimer's in mice, but those things don't translate to humans. So we've put forward a policy to replace animals in research with other technological advances, AI and other tools that actually translate better to human health. But then I'm getting and we got rid of all the beagle experiments on the NIH campus. But you know, it's sort of like people just don't trust the NIH anymore, and I can understand why. The NIH during the pandemic leaned into lockdowns, school closures, all these things, and so I think there's still a level of distrust that the American people have for the NIH that I'm hoping under President Trump we can reverse.
Has PETA reached out to you and told you you're the latest hero? Like, I mean, they must be ecstatic with you right now.
They did. I got flowers from PETA, you know, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Normally, I think NIH directors tend to get physical threats, but they sent me flowers.
Last Thursday, President Trump signed an executive order to establish the MAHA Commission to study what has caused the precipitous decline in American health over the past 2 generations. So we will convene representatives of all viewpoints to study the causes for the drastic rise in chronic disease. Some of the possible factors we will investigate were formerly taboo or insufficiently scrutinized: the childhood vaccine schedule, electromagnetic radiation, glyphosate, other pesticides, ultra-processed foods, artificial food additives, SSRI and other psychiatric drugs, PFAs, PFOAs, microplastics. Nothing is going to be off limits. Whatever belief or suspicion I have expressed in the past, I'm willing to subject them all to the scrutiny of unbiased science. That is going to be our template, unbiased science. That's something that will make us all proud of this agency and of our role in restoring American health. Let's commission research that will satisfy all the stakeholders once and for all. Let's use protocols that we all agree on in advance and not alter the outcomes of studies when they're halfway through and that they look inconvenient. Let's all depoliticize these issues and reestablish a common ground for action and renew the search for existential truth with no political impediments and no preconceptions. Finally, I want to ask you to think about
Today, the FDA is taking action to remove petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply and from medications. For the last 50 years, American children have increasingly been living in a toxic soup of synthetic chemicals. The scientific community has conducted a number of studies raising concerns about the correlation between petroleum-based synthetic dyes and several health conditions, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, cancer, genomic disruption, GI issues, as I've seen in the hospital, and allergic reactions. For example, this Lancet study conducted a randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled study on food dyes and concluded that artificial colors in the diet, quote,
result in increased hyperactivity. So why are we taking a gamble?
I am honored to introduce to you Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
Overall, the autism is increasing in prevalence at an alarming rate. The ASD prevalence rate in 8-year-olds is now 1 in 31. Shocking. This is part of an unrelenting upward trend, and most cases now are severe. In 1987, out of every 1 million kids, 330 were diagnosed with autism. Today, there are 27,777 for every million. So doctors and therapists in the past were not stupid. They weren't missing all these cases. The epidemic is real, and it's time for everybody to stop attributing this to this ideology of epidemic denial. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin. We're going to announce a series of new studies to identify precisely what the environmental toxins are that are causing it. This has not been done before. And we're going to look at all the potential culprits. We're going to look at mold. We're going to look at food additives. We're going to look at pesticides. We're going to look at air and water and medicines. We're going to follow the science no matter what it says, and we will have some of the answers by September. Thank you all very much.
Produced by the U.S. Department.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm the Secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services. In the final months of the election, President Trump repeatedly called for removing toxins from our food supply. He added his voice to the millions of MAHA moms who were touting the Make America Healthy Again agenda. The first step is radical transparency, because right now, not even the U.S. government knows what's in our food. In 1958, the government created a designation called Generally Recognized as Safe, or GRAS, so that we can make common ingredients like salt and baking soda exempt from testing. But today, it isn't just salt and baking soda. Food companies and cooperative regulators have enlarged the GRAS exemption so that these companies can decide for themselves whether a substance is generally recognized as safe. No FDA approval is needed. European nations, on the other hand, require that a chemical be proven safe before it becomes a food ingredient. In our country, the GRAS standard means that every chemical is presumed safe until proven dangerous, and that proof might not happen until millions of Americans are sick with chronic disease. This mass experiment on the American population with GRAS has, in short, been a catastrophe. We now have around 10,000 chemicals in our food, while Europe has only 400. For example, titanium dioxide, potentially linked to DNA damage and cancer, is banned in the EU, but it's in our children's food. Potassium bromate, a suspected carcinogen, banned in Europe and Japan. And you guessed it, it's in our children's bread. Food dyes such as red dye 40 and yellow 5 and 6 come with warning labels in Europe. They're linked to behavioral issues in children, but in the U.S., they're generally recognized as safe. I can't really blame the food companies. They're just doing what we've allowed them to get away with in a system that's taken on a life of its own. We all agree now that it's time to change the system, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I am today directing the FDA commissioner to start the process of changing the rules to eliminate the self-affirming GRAS pathway for new ingredients. I'm also directing the FDA and NIH to ramp up post-market assessments of GRAS chemicals currently in our food so that we can rapidly identify the compounds that are making Americans so sick, and so that American consumers and regulators can make informed decisions. This issue isn't going away. Moms aren't going to return to wanting chemicals in our food that are banned in other developed countries. Even industry knows that we have to change. So I promise you, I'm going to work with all parties, the companies, the moms, the scientists, the consumer advocates, to make American food the healthiest in the world the way that it was when I was a child.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Crazy. And so how willing would you be to look at a new food pyramid and instituting one?
We're doing that right now. When we came in, the Biden administration had created new nutrition guidelines, but they were unworkable, and they were supposed to go into effect on January 20th. I asked President Trump to give us permission to kick the ball down to March. And the document that we got from the Biden administration was 453 pages long. Oh, it's completely useless to a mother or to a school. And what I said is, we want a 3-page document that essentially says you should be eating whole foods. Hi, this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. As Secretary of Health and Human Services, one of the agencies that I oversee is the Food and Drug Administration. The FDA is responsible for making sure that the food and medicine that Americans put into their body is safe. That's important for everyone, but especially for our children, because they're the most vulnerable, and the most vulnerable of all are our babies. If there's one food that must be safe beyond any doubt, it's infant formula. Mothers who cannot or choose not to breastfeed need to have absolute confidence that their infant formula is ideal for their babies and have many options to choose from. Parents and others who rely on infant formula should know what's in these products and how consuming them may impact their child's health. That's why I'm directing the FDA to launch Operation Stork Speed. Amongst many things, it will study infant formula to inform updates in federal guidelines. Let me tell you why we're doing this. You see, the science of human nutrition has progressed since current guidelines were put in place in 1998. So we're going to evaluate all the common ingredients from corn syrup solids to seed oils and make sure that they meet the needs of our little ones. Some things we know are bad, like heavy metals. So we're going to increase the frequency of testing to make sure that no child drinks contaminated formula. I met with the CEOs of all the top infant formula manufacturers a couple of days ago, and they're united in support of this initiative. They are ready to make whatever changes are needed based upon the current evidence, because no one wants our children to be sick. We all want our children to grow and flourish from the moment they're born. Make America Healthy Again is something that can unite all Americans, and that's what Operation Stork Speed is all about. We're going to make American infant formula the gold standard for the world.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
That's why today I'm proud to launch what I'm calling the 4 pillars of a healthy West Virginia. First, we have to clean up the food. We really do. Let's start with no more dyes and dangerous additives in the schools. We know that studies show that can lead to issues with hormones and hyperactivity and learning challenges for kids and even cancer. Our kids deserve better, and now they're going to get it. You deserve that. That's why earlier this week, we took the first step to remove those harmful dyes from school nutritional programs and food items throughout the state. I'm thankful to the legislature for their leadership in passing this bill and making West Virginia a leader, the first state in the nation to make sweeping changes to clean up our food.
Will honor the aspirations of the vast majority of existing HHS employees who actually yearn to make America healthy. 28 great divisions will become 15. The entire federal workforce is downsizing now, so this will be a painful period for HHS as we downsize from 82,000 full-time employees to around 62,000. We're keenly focused on paring away excess administrators while increasing the number of scientists and frontline health providers so that we can do a better job for the American people. We're going to streamline our agency and eliminate the redundancies and invite everyone to align behind a simple, bold mission. I want every HHS employee to wake up every morning asking themselves, what can I do to restore American health today? I want to empower everyone in the HHS family to have a sense of purpose and pride and a sense of personal agency and responsibility to this larger goal. We're going to save taxpayers nearly $2 billion a year, and we're going to return HHS to its original commitment to public health and gold standard science. I want this agency to be once again a revered scientific institution that once made HHS the envy of the world. I want everyone who works here to be proud of this agency, to be proud of their work, to feel a renewed inspiration and their own sense of responsibility for our success in restoring America to good health. Streamlining HHS is part of a shift to new priorities, especially ending the chronic disease epidemic with clean water, safe food, effective medicine, good science, radical transparency, and a healthy environment. I think most Americans would agree with me that throwing more money at healthcare isn't going to solve the problem, or it would have solved it already. Obviously, what we've been doing hasn't worked. That's why we're making this dramatic overhaul. But the real overhaul is even bigger. The real overhaul is improving the health of the entire nation to make America healthy again. Today, we announced a dramatic reduction in animal testing at NIH and FDA. We're going to switch over to AI, which we've now found is much more precise in identifying the impacts of toxics in various products.